This happened a few months ago. I'm Tyler, 32, a high school biology teacher. I thought a weekend camping trip in Evergreen National Park would help me recharge. I knew my way around, having camped several times before. It was supposed to be a peaceful escape. But I've never stopped thinking about what happened. The campsite was tucked away, surrounded by tall pines and a quiet lake. The air smelled fresh, full of pine needles and damp earth. It felt calming at first, but there was something unsettling about the way the trees loomed over me. It was just me, the fire, and the whispers of the forest. It felt like the forest held secrets I didn't understand. On my first night, I set up camp and lit a fire. As I roasted marshmallows, I heard something rustling in the bushes. I thought it might be a deer or some other animal. I didn't pay much attention at first. But then, I noticed shadows moving. I felt a chill creep up my spine. I shook it off and went to bed, thinking maybe I was just tired. The next morning, I found my backpack open. I swear I had zipped it before. My things were all in disarray. At first, I thought it was just the wind. But that evening, as the sun dipped, I caught a glimpse of something moving between the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. My heart started racing. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Later that night, I heard a melody drifting through the trees. It was soft and luring, almost like singing. I wasn't sure where it came from. I steeled myself and stepped closer into the trees, feeling colder with each step. But when I looked, there was nothing there. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was imagining things, but the unease wouldn't leave. By my final night, I encountered a group down by the lake. They seemed oddly familiar, yet distant. They were laughing, but there was something hollow about it, like their joy was twisted. I stepped closer, thinking I might recognize them, but they turned away, their laughter fading. My heart pounded harder. I called out, asking if they needed help, but nobody answered. Then they just disappeared into the darkness. As I packed my things the next morning, I felt like I was being watched. Did any of it really happen? I wondered. Did I make it all up? I was confused, still questioning everything. I couldn't find explanations for what I saw or heard. Then something hit me. Why couldn't I remember their faces? I thought I knew them, but they felt so distant. I stepped back, aware of that chill creeping up my spine again. And then it hit me, I really wasn't alone in those woods. What was in the trees? I still don't know, but every time I close my eyes, I hear that strange singing. And I wonder if I'll ever stop feeling like they're out there, waiting. As the days passed and turned into weeks, the unease lingered. I kept replaying my time in the woods in my head, trying to make sense of it all. I even started avoiding the park. I wanted to forget, but the whispers followed me, creeping into my thoughts at night. One evening, I joined some friends for a backyard barbecue. They laughed and shared stories while I sat quietly, feeling like a ghost. When someone asked about my trip, I tried to shrug it off, but the words stumbled out. I told them about the rustling noises and the melody. They were amused at first, laughing at me for getting spooked. But something shifted when I mentioned the group by the lake. That sounds a bit weird, Jessica, my college friend, frowned. You sure you weren't just tired? I wasn't. It felt real, too real. I had to know more. After the barbecue, I found myself back at home. The shadows cast by my living room lamp felt heavy. I grabbed my laptop and Googled Evergreen National Park, but there was little information about strange occurrences. It was a normal campsite, or so the travel blogs insisted. Then, in a forum buried deep in the search results, something caught my eye. A thread titled Strange Encounters in Evergreen. I clicked on it and found several stories similar to mine. People describing whispers in the night, shadowy figures dancing in the trees, and ghostly songs that lured them deeper into the woods. I read through the posts, my heart pacing as the sense of dread returned. It felt good to find others who had experienced the inexplicable, but the accounts were deeply unsettling. That I noticed one post that mentioned a local urban legend, a tale of a long-lost group of campers who vanished decades ago. They were said to return each year, appearing to unsuspecting visitors under the guise of laughter and song, searching for something only they could find. I was both fascinated and terrified. As I scrolled down, a comment caught my attention. "If you hear them sing, don't follow. They take more than memories." My blood ran cold. I had heard the singing. I had stepped into the darkness that I jumped when my phone buzzed. It was Jessica, texting about a trip she was planning. "Let us go camping. Evergreen. What do you think?" My stomach twisted. I couldn't let her go there, not after what I encountered. Instinctively, I typed out a warning, but then I hesitated. What if nobody believed me? What if I sounded crazy? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Should I share what I experienced? I finally decided to text back, vague at first. "I wouldn't recommend it. Just, trust me." The reply came almost instantly. "Why? What happened?" I opened my mouth to type, but nothing came out. Something twisted in my gut. I suddenly felt like I was being watched again, like the eyes of the forest had returned to haunt me. It was different this time, more present. I stood up, glancing around the room. That's when I noticed that the shadow cast by the lamp wasn't all mine. I followed it, creeping closer to the window. My breath caught. The trees outside were still, but in the corner of my vision, I could have sworn I saw movement. Then everything went dark. I jolted up, my heart pounding. The abrupt darkness enveloped me, swallowing the room whole. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to find my phone. The glow from the screen illuminated the walls, casting eerie shapes that seemed to mock my fear. I glanced back at the window. The trees stood silent again, their silhouettes unyielding against the night sky. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe I had stared too long into the shadows. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. "It's just the power," I whispered. Yet, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. I checked my phone. The time read 9:47 p.m. The battery was nearly dead. No service, either. Perfect. I had no idea how long the blackout would last. That's when I heard a soft melody floating through the air. It was distant but familiar, like the music drifting from the lake in my memory. Without thinking, I wrapped my sweater tightly around my shoulders and headed for the door. I knew I shouldn't follow that sound, but I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. The urge to uncover the source gnawed at me. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face. The darkness was thicker here, oppressive. I clutched my phone for light as I moved down the porch steps. The melody grew clearer, weaving its way through the trees. I hesitated. Should I turn back? My instincts screamed at me to return, yet curiosity propelled me forward. The feeling of being watched returned, making the hairs on my neck stand up. I forced myself to keep going. I wandered toward the park path, following the ghostly notes. The trees twisted above me, shadowy hands seeming to reach out. As I moved deeper, the tune shifted, revealing deeper layers, voices layered within, laughter echoing like wind chimes. Then I saw them, figures dancing in a small clearing, illuminated by a shimmer that didn't belong to the moon. They wore faded clothes, all of them, looking like they were straight out of another time. Their faces were intent on something I couldn't see, smiles spreading across their lips as they moved. I stood frozen, not daring to breathe. My heart raced. I knew those faces. They were the campers from the legend, the ones who vanished all those years ago. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had come face to face with what I feared most. One of them turned slowly, eyes locking onto mine. The smile faded. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice smooth like honey yet dripping with something sinister. I stumbled back, the laughter around me turning into discordant notes, sharp and painful. The shadows around us seemed to thicken, swirling like a storm on the horizon. I turned to run, words of warning echoing in my mind, but the forest had other plans. The path twisted unnaturally, leading me away from my home, when I heard a voice behind me, clear and melodic. Stay and play with us. I was terrified, the malicious intent palpable. I felt their eyes following me, hungry. I had to escape. The trees closed in, shadows stretching toward me like fingers. Then, out of nowhere, the world spun. The ground beneath me gave way. I fell, dark emptiness overtaking me, and just like that, I was gone. I groaned as I landed, feeling the hard ground against my back. I blinked, struggling to focus in the dim light. It took a moment for my heartbeat to slow, but the panic wasn't quite gone. I pushed myself up, my surroundings hazy. The air was cooler down here, the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves mixed with something else. Something sweet that sent shivers down my spine. There were no trees, just wide open space surrounding me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer in the same world or time. That I stood and looked around. It was a small hollow covered in the faintest glow. Spindly grass creaked beneath my feet. I felt as if I had stepped into a dream, uncanny and unsettling, when I noticed them again, the figures from before. They stood at the edge of the clearing, facial features hidden in the greenish light. They were watching me, but this time, they were still. A heavy silence filled the air, and I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to scream. "Where am I?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. One of them took a step forward, and I recognized the shape, the man who had spoken to me. His faded clothing billowed slightly, as if there was a breeze that I couldn't feel. "You found your way," he said, his tone different now, almost congratulatory. "They sought you, didn't they?" I stared at him, my mind racing. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" He laughed softly. It was a strange sound, devoid of warmth. "We want what we once were. You are here to play, to join us." Play? The word hung in the air, weighty and sinister. I remembered the laughter from before, the way it twisted and ached. "No, I want to go home." "Home?" he echoed, tilting his head as if the word were foreign to him. "What makes you think you can go back?" That caught me off guard. I thought of the campers, the ones who never returned. A knot formed in my stomach. I could not want to share their fate. In that moment, I turned away from him, dread filling my chest. I had to move. I sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, the glow flickering like a flame. Behind me, I heard footsteps follow, insistent and hungry. The laughter returned, mocking, swirling with my panic. I pushed through a rush of energy, but all my strength felt like it was fading. Then I noticed something glistening in the grass ahead. I didn't dare slow down, but I caught a glimpse of what it was: a small wooden whistle, intricately carved, with strange symbols that seemed to throb with energy. I reached for it as I ran, feeling the pull of something powerful, something that might lead me back. And in that moment, I realized this was no ordinary whistle. It was a beacon, a piece of their past, and perhaps a key to my escape. Still, I felt the weight of their gazes on me. I grasped it tightly as I burst from the clearing into the dark forest beyond. But then everything fell silent. I halted, breath pounding in my ears. What now? I couldn't shake the feeling that the silence was a trap. When I heard the whisper again, too close. "You can't run away forever." My heart skipped. I was not out of danger yet. I strained to catch my breath, glancing over my shoulder. The clearing was empty now, but I could still feel their presence like a chill creeping under my skin. I turned back to the path ahead, clutching the whistle tightly. I had no idea what it could do, but I couldn't let it go. The forest enveloped me, shadows twisting around the trees. The sweet scent lingered, drawing me deeper. I had to focus. I had to keep moving. Yet, the whispers floated through the air like an echo of a forgotten lullaby. "Come play with us," they sang. "Come and join." I pushed through the underbrush, branches clawing at my arms as if trying to hold me back. Panic surged again. I stumbled over roots, my heart racing faster than my feet could carry me. I couldn't let them catch me. I wouldn't be another lost soul. Then I spotted a light ahead, soft and inviting, flickering among the trees. Hope sparked inside me. Perhaps it was a way out. I hurried toward it, my steps more cautious now. As I approached, I could see it clearer, a tiny cabin, half hidden by vine and moss. Smoke curled from the chimney and the door swung ajar, creaking softly in the breeze. My instinct screamed at me to turn back, but desperation pushed me forward. I needed answers. I stepped onto the porch, the wooden boards groaning beneath my weight. I glanced around, the environment was too still. I peered into the dark interior, my heart pounding in my throat. Nothing stirred. "Hello?" I called, my voice breaking the silence. No response. I hesitated, then moved inside. The air was thick with dust and the scent of cedar. Old furniture was scattered around, covered in white sheets like ghosts waiting to be remembered. I scanned the room, feeling the weight of curiosity and dread. There was a fireplace, remnants of ash still clinging to the stones. But what caught my attention was a table in the corner, a map spread out, with strange symbols and markings, including an outline of the forest. I stepped closer, drawn to the peculiar arrangements. Each symbol mirrored the ones on the whistle. They pulsed softly, as if alive. My heart raced. Maybe this was the key to understanding where I was and how to escape. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, panic flooding back. The whispers intensified, growing louder, wrapping around me like a shroud. "You found us." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure at the window, a shadow moving just beyond the glass. My breath caught in my throat. I approached slowly, heart hammering. I needed to see who it was. When I reached the window, I peered out. My breath hitched. There were shapes, dozens of them, gathered just out of reach, eyes glowing like embers. They were watching me. "What do you want?" I gasped, backing away. "Join us," they whispered, their voices mingling into a haunting melody. I was trapped. Nowhere to run. The whistle pulsed in my hand. Maybe it was time to use it. But would it bring help or invoke their wrath? The urge to scream bubbled up, but I swallowed it down. I had to make my next move carefully. This was far from over, and I had only begun to scratch the surface of this twisted game. Then, I noticed something strange reflected in the glass, something darting through the trees behind the figures. I squinted, realizing it was a person. A real person. But who? And why were they here? My heart raced. I had to find out. But the shadows were closing in, and I needed to act fast. I turned back to the cabin, the fear swelling inside me. The shapes outside were still there, unblinking and waiting. But the real person I had seen, who were they? Were they lost too? I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't let curiosity lead me to my doom, but I needed to know. That I moved away from the window and quickly scanned the room for another way out. The back door could be my best chance. I had two options: head toward the shadows outside or stick around and confront the whispers in the cabin. Then, amidst the chaos of my thoughts, I heard a noise. It was a soft knock, barely audible, coming from the back door. My heart dropped. Was it the figure? Or something worse? The sound came again, more insistent this time. That I crept towards the door, my breath hitching with every step. I turned the handle slowly, afraid of what I might encounter. Just as I opened the door a crack, a gust of wind surged in, pushing it wide open. That I stumbled back, hitting the table with the map. Papers scattered everywhere, but I caught a glimpse of what was outside. The figure stood at the edge of the clearing, their features obscured by shadows. Help me! They shouted, their voice cracking. Please, before they come for you too. I hesitated. There was something desperate in their tone. What if this was a trap? But the way they reached out made me feel an ounce of hope. I'm not safe here. I shouted back, my fear battling my instincts. Who are you? I'm Jake. He called. Just run. They're here. I took a step forward, hesitating again as the whispers grew louder. Come play with us, they sang, their voices wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I stepped outside, drawn to Jake, and reached for him. The moment my fingers brushed his arm, the world shifted. The shadows around the cabin seemed to grow thicker, and I heard the unmistakable sound of laughter echoing from the darkness. Join us! They chanted, their eyes glinting. I turned, panic coursing through me. No longer watching from a distance, the figures advanced, their forms more solid now. My heart raced. I didn't want to fight, but there was nowhere to run. Jake tugged at my arm. We have to go, now. I nodded, my grip tightening on the whistle. Maybe it contained something that could save us. Just as we turned to flee, a shadow lunged from the edge of the trees. Then everything went dark. I gasped, my vision blackened. Coming back slowly, I found myself in an unfamiliar place. The forest felt distant, and the air buzzed with a strange energy. I clawed at my surroundings, realizing I was in a small room, dimly lit and bare. The only sound was the soft buzzing echoing off the walls. Where was Jake? What happened to us? Suddenly, a door creaked open. I squinted into the light, and a figure stepped inside. Someone from the forest, but this time, they looked human. I caught my breath. I found you, they said, but their voice twisted with a familiarity that made my stomach turn. I had no idea what awaited me next. The figure stepped closer, their features becoming clearer. It was a woman, but there was something unsettling about her expression. The light bounced off her eyes, giving them a glimmer that felt unnerving. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice shaky. Don't you remember me? She replied, tilting her head as if judging my reaction. I'm May. You've seen me before. Confusion clouded my thoughts. I had no memory of her. Maybe I had been knocked out longer than I thought. I don't know you, I stammered. She sighed, stepping back slightly. The buzzing intensified, vibrating against my skin. You're not the first to get lost, you know, May said, the hint of a smile creeping across her lips. But you're lucky. We can help you. Panic began to build again. Help? Was this some kind of sick joke? The shadows from the forest flooded my mind. Are you with them? I asked, backing away. Did you bring me here? No. Not them, she cried, hands raised in peace. I was trying to escape, just like you. But she hesitated, glancing over her shoulder before continuing. They don't let you leave easily. Her words made something cold curl inside my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that danger was still close. Where's Jake? I demanded, urgency seeped into my voice. What did you do to him? Jake? Her expression changed, concern flickering across her face. You have to get out of here. He isn't safe. Follow me, quickly. Before I could respond, she turned and dashed back out through the door. My instincts screamed at me to stay, to not trust her. But without Jake and with those whispers creeping back into my mind, I felt like I had no choice. I sprinted after her, the buzzing sound suddenly replaced with the distant echoes of laughter. I followed May down a narrow corridor, the walls closing in around us. I struggled to keep pace, my breath coming in quick, panicked gasps. Where are we going? I called out, but she didn't answer. I caught glimpses of creeping shadows at the edges of my vision, twisting and writhing as if they were alive. We stopped at a heavy door, and she slammed it shut behind us, pressing her back against it. "They're coming," she whispered urgently, her eyes darting around as if waiting for something. "Who? What is happening?" I said, my heart pounding in my chest. May placed a finger over her lips, shushing me. "I'll explain everything in a minute, but we need to stay quiet." Just then, the shadows from the corridor seeped into the room, taking on forms twisted and nightmarish. I pressed back against the wall, trying to disappear. May's face went pale, fear replacing her previous bravado. "That's when I realized," she whispered, "the door can't hold them for long." My mind raced. I had to find a way out to save us, but I still had no idea what we were truly up against. The door rattled violently behind us, and I felt my heart drop into my stomach. The shadows twisted, their forms indistinguishable yet unmistakably menacing. I could barely breathe as I glanced at May, who was scanning the room for an escape route. The urgency in her eyes warned me that we were running out of time. "What do we do?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "I know a way out, but it's risky," she replied. "We can't stay here." "Risky?" My mind raced with terrible possibilities. Would we have to face whatever those shadows became? A metallic clang echoed from the door, making me jump. Without waiting for my answer, May dashed toward a window. It was small, and the glass appeared old and cracked. "Help me," she ordered, her voice firm despite the chaos outside. My instinct to hesitate fought against my desperate need to escape. I rushed over, and together we pushed at the wooden frame. It groaned under the pressure, driving home the panic that coursed through me. "What about Jake?" I blurted out, as if mere words could pull him to safety. Despite the noise around us, May narrowed her eyes at me. "If we don't get out now, there'll be no one left to save," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. With one last push, the window finally gave way, shattering into jagged pieces. I flinched at the sound, but May was already climbing through, her determination infectious. I followed her, feeling the cool night air hit my face as we dropped down into the underbrush. As soon as my feet hit the ground, I turned back. The shadows inside the building pressed against the window, writhing and reaching like desperate hands. I felt bile rise in my throat. "What are they?" I gasped, unease wrapping tightly around me. "They're what happens to those who stay too long," May said, her voice trembling. "We need to go, now." We stumbled through the dark forest, branches snagging at our clothes as we dodged trees. I could barely keep my bearings. Each step felt like it was pulling me deeper into the unknown. "Wait. What about Jake?" The concern on her face flickered. "I wish I had answers, but we have to survive this first." We ran further, and May suddenly skidded to a stop. "This way!" she shouted, darting down a narrow path lined with overgrown foliage. But something in her voice struck me as off. I glanced back toward the building, where faint whispers began drifting from the shadows. I felt a chill creep down my spine. "I can't!" I shouted, the fear clawing at my throat. "I need to find Jake first." "No. We don't have time," May urged, grabbing my arm. That's when I saw it just ahead of us in the dense darkness, a faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat. It pulled at my instincts, a beacon cutting through the fear. "What is that?" I breathed, overwhelmed with curiosity. "I don't know, but it's not safe." May pulled harder, trying to lead me away, but I was rooted to the spot. That glow flickered just for a moment, and then it disappeared, leaving behind an echo of laughter that seemed all too familiar. "Something's wrong," I murmured, my blood turning cold as I started to realize the weight of our situation. The shadows lurked behind us, and I could feel a sinister presence closer than before. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed through the trees, and I knew then that whatever was hunting us was coming closer. The footsteps grew louder, a relentless thumping that vibrated through the ground. Panic surged through me, and I shifted from one foot to the other, torn between fleeing and figuring out what the glow had been. "May, we have to move," I urged, my eyes darting in every direction. The forest felt alive, every rustle and whisper amplifying the fear that wrapped around me like a vice. She hesitated, her gaze still locked onto the darkness. "Maybe it's a source of light. Maybe it could lead us somewhere." "No, it's a trap," I shouted. The shadows were thickening, and that laughter echoed again, this time clearer. It sounded like Jake's voice. "Jake!" I yelled instinctively, but there was no answer. Just silence wrapped in an unsettling weight. Before I could process my next move, May yanked on my arm. "This way," she insisted again, forcing me down another path that twisted into the trees. I followed, my heart racing. The shadows stirred behind us, angry and chaotic. Each step felt like it dragged us down, a heaviness in the air that pressed against my chest. I could almost hear whispers forming words, taunting me with unknown threats and lost hopes. Then we stumbled into a small clearing. "We might be safe here," May said, her breath coming fast. Dim moonlight spilled onto the ground, and for a moment, the shadows seemed to recede, but then May gasped. I turned to see what had caught her attention. At the edge of the clearing stood a figure, silhouetted against the moonlight. My heart dropped as I recognized the familiar outline. "Jake! Jake!" I called out, a mix of hope and dread swirling within me. I stepped forward, but he didn't move. His eyes were unnaturally wide, that familiar spark of mischief gone. "Stay back," May warned, grabbing my arm tightly. "It's not safe." "Why not?" I snapped, confused. "It's him." As I looked closer, an icy chill spread through me. Jake's smile looked too wide, too unnatural. Shadows clung to his figure like a second skin. My mind raced, piecing together the events. He couldn't be corrupted," I whispered, disbelief flickering in my mind. The shadows danced around Jake, and for a moment, I thought I could see faces within them, distorted and sorrowful. "Help me," Jake moaned, his voice mixed with the hollow echo that filled the air. "No, no, no," I shouted, shaking my head. "That's not him. How can we trust that?" May's grip tightened on my arm. "We have to go. Now." But my feet felt glued to the ground as Jake's figure trembled. "Please," his voice cracked, and a glimmer of the old Jake peeked through. For a breathless moment, I was torn. Suddenly, a horrifying snarl erupted from behind us, shattering the fragile moment. The shadows lunged toward us, and May screamed. "We need to run," she yelled, pulling me away just as the darkness lunged for Jake. We dashed back into the thick of the forest, but I glanced back one last time. Jake was gone, swallowed by the shadows, and with him, the last vestige of hope. The night air felt thick with despair as we fled deeper into the forest, the weight of our choices bearing down hard. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had taken Jake was now hunting us both. Then, as we ran, a low growl echoed between the trees, and I realized the shadows weren't the only thing that lurked in the darkness. Something more tangible was on our trail. I woke suddenly, the ground hard beneath me and a wave of confusion washing over. Panic rushed in as I sat up, memories flooding back the shadows, the whispers, Jake's desperate face. Where was I? The light was dim, the air thick with an uncomfortable chill. I struggled to my feet, now acutely aware of the stillness around me. Where was May? I called out her name, but my voice felt swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Taking a deep breath, I stepped cautiously forward, surveying my surroundings. What lay ahead was an expanse of bare trees and shadows merging with the inky night that I could still hear the faint echoes of laughter from the forest, distorted, mocking, and laden with sorrow. It felt as if the very trees were leaning in, eager to witness my next move. I had to escape, to find a way out of this nightmare. As I began to walk, the memories of the cabin and the haunting figure surrounded by shadows flooded back. Suddenly, I noticed a faint glow ahead, flickering like a beacon, called my name. Heart pounding, I moved towards it, desperate for any sign of safety. As I drew nearer, I felt a wave of warmth, illuminating my path as shadows seemed to pull back. Was this what May had seen? When I finally reached the source of light, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a cabin but a small clearing, the ground littered with old remnants, broken twigs and signs of a fire that had long since gone cold. In the center lay a circle of stones, and at its heart, a small, pulsing light emanated from a relic that looked eerily familiar, the wooden whistle I had found in the previous clearing. That I scrambled towards it, knowing the weight of those shadows that haunted me was always there, just out of sight. I had to choose: would this whistle lead me to safety, or was it a siren's call to join whatever figures stalked me? As I reached down to pick it up, the laughter crescendoed against the night air, resonating with danger. Then everything changed. The shadows straightened, coiling like serpents ready to strike. I was engulfed in darkness, and I could feel the presence around me tightening, pushing against my very breath. "You thought you could leave?" A disembodied voice echoed, cold and dark. "Leave me alone," I shouted, clutching the whistle. I refused to be another victim. The shadows writhed, and the light around me flickered dangerously. "Victims are what we crave," the voice laughed, the sound digging into my core. "You belong to us now." I felt a flash of terror, but desperation fueled my resolve. With a swift movement, I raised the whistle to my lips, summoning every ounce of courage. The haunting melody shaped my actions, bursting forth louder than the sinister laughter, drowning it out. As the sound echoed through the hollow, an unexpected surge of light pushed against the shadows, forcing them back, if only temporarily. The shadows contorted and wailed, their forms twisting and retreating. "No, not again!" they screeched, anger reverberating through the trees. I pressed forward, hoping to escape while their forms weakened. Through the haze, I glimpsed a figure, a flicker of familiarity that made my pulse spike. "Jake?" I gasped, my heart hopeful yet haunted. "Tyler! Over here!" he yelled, his voice strained but resonating with urgency. He stood at the edge of the darkness, wavering like a mirage. "Where are you?" I called, sliding closer to where I thought I had seen him. The shadows recoiled, but they were closing in around us, sealing off our way. "Keep blowing. It pushes them back." I took a deep breath and let the melody spill into the night, wrapping my essence with every note. As I blew into the whistle, a burst of vibrant energy shot forth, breaking through the oppressive weight of the darkness. The shadows screamed, bending under its brilliance. Jake pulled out of the darkness, rushing toward me, and we clasped hands. Together, he urged, our synergy igniting hope. As we raced through the clearing, the world felt electric, shadows spilling around us like a tide. But even as we pushed toward the light beyond, whispers swirled and clawed at our thoughts. "You can't escape," they teased, "you belong with us." Just as our surroundings began to shift, the glimmer of dawn creeping through the foliage, I could sense that the end was near. I could almost feel the warmth of the sun. But there was still an underlying pull, a desire for us to return. I refused to look back, clenching the whistle tightly. Then, just as the first rays of sun broke through, I felt that tug again, a desperate longing emanating from the forest. I glanced around towards what felt like an endless expanse of light beyond, only to see those figures again, those twisted, hollow faces appearing in the shadows. They stood waiting, as if caught between joy and despair that I finally crossed the threshold into the dawn, breathless. As the shadows receded, I turned back for only a moment. The figures were gone, hidden behind that thin veil between worlds. The forest felt still, but the weight of what we had faced hung in the air, a whisper of uncertainty marking our escape. As we stumbled forward, safe yet changed, I glanced at Jake. "What happens to them?" He shrugged, his eyes holding a mixture of understanding and fear. "I don't know. But I feel like they're still out there." We walked in silence for a while, each step carrying the weight of unspoken thoughts. I was relieved to be free, but deep down, uncertainty gnawed at me. I still didn't know what had happened or if it was truly over. The forest behind us felt alive, waiting with unanswered questions, its secrets clinging to the shadows, hidden but never truly gone. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if I will revisit the park, if those whispers still haunt the woods. But mostly, I try not to think about it.